Eddie Goldenberg, let me start with you. You wrote in the Globe that we should essentially do a prisoner swap. You take Meng Wanzhou back, we'll get the Michaels back. Chrystia Freeland today, basically, I thought she kind of called you out, Eddie, and she's like, we're not doing that. What's the case for a prisoner swap?
Case for a prisoner swap is a pretty simple one. I think everybody believes the first priority of the government is to get the two Michaels back home. So the question becomes, how do you do it? And I don't think it's rocket science. And I said in the article that the options are unpalatable. In government, often you have to choose between somewhat unpalatable and even more unpalatable. Unfortunately, not between good and even better. And how do you get them out? The Chinese are not going to let the two guys out without Madame Meng coming home to China. So we have to ask ourselves, are you prepared to stand up to some principle and let them rot in Chinese jails for years? Or are you prepared to do an exchange? And I know people said, well, look, you can't do an exchange because, what'll happen? Will they do it again? The Israelis don't hesitate to release convicted terrorists, and Madame Meng isn't a convicted terrorist, in return for sometimes even just for bodies.
David, can I jump in on that? I mean, your point in your piece was that to govern is to choose.
Yeah.
But we are our choices. And at the moment, I don't think we're a country that gives up on on due process. At the moment, this case is before a judge who might very well resolve within in quite short order that there is no case to answer, that she didn't commit a crime against Canadian law, and that she's free to go.
Well, if she does that, great.
But
if she doesn't do that, you've got two guys rotting in a Chinese jail.
At this point, I think it's looking like a really long legal process, this extradition hearing. It's going to be years. But, politically speaking, this case pins Canada between two of the world's largest superpowers, the United States and China. And as simple as a prisoner swap might sound, with all due respect, it is really complicating with our closest neighbor to the south.
Oh, well, does this idea reward China for essentially rerouting around what we call the democratically rights-based rule of law? Dick Fadden, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it does reward them in a manner of speaking, but more to the point, it seems to me that it's not just the rule of law. We have to ask where the national interest is. Now, I agree with Eddie. Trying to get a couple of people out of a Chinese jail is not a bad objective. It's not a bad first objective. But we elect governments to pursue the national interest. And that's not necessarily reduced to two individuals. So I would say it's not in our national interest to do this right now because it will complicate our relationships with China for the next 10 years. They will think that we will fold every time we have a disagreement with them.